Hello and welcome to the next edition of the RSLogix500 Micrologix Odyssey course. In this edition we'll be covering the following topics. In the last video we downloaded the program, went online, and before that we exported the database. So we had all these tags. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and add some tags and re-import them. This is a little bit faster way than going in here to the tags themselves and editing things. So a lot of what I'm going to add are going to be here in these B files. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to bring this back and we're going to talk about the tags that I added and do the import. So a little pause here. What I found easiest here is to go ahead and make space for 16 bits and then go ahead and copy these down, and you see how it's filling the series here. So I'm all the way through my first word of bits here. You want to make sure that you also copy everything that has an item in the column. A lot of these items are more for words than they are for bits, but you see how I'm kind of doing this. And then you can type in your symbols. And I'm going to do that here real quick. We're going to just type in some of the symbols that we want to use and some of the descriptions. It's definitely faster this way. Now you can see here that I've typed in some symbols and some descriptions. So what I did is copied all of these down here and I made these in exactly the same format. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy these and I'm going to put them up in the higher ranges. Insert these copied cells and then change this to, we'll say 7.0 through 7.15. Actually, I think we're going to make these auto push buttons, that sort of thing, manual push buttons. You get the general idea. This is an HMI push button. So we'll put the word HMI in here. And again, I'm going to type in some of these and then come back. These are all typical things that we would use for a system routine for starting the system. This is the only time I'm going to do this import. It's just to kind of show you how it works. This is a faster way of doing all of your symbols and descriptions. Now I'm part way through my editing here, and you'll see that if I copy some of these and paste them, it makes my typing job a little bit quicker. So I can now change this to an indicator and do the same thing here. And if you're a slow typist like me, this saves you a little bit of time. Copy and paste, use the shortcuts, and that does save you a little bit of time. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to import this. Need to remember where it is, and it looks like it's all the way down in this folder, so I'm going to have to browse for it. I know that, so you need to remember where things are. And you go to your database, ASCII import. And here we are. So it's going to give you a lot of warnings, and we'll see what all this looks like. Most of it looks okay, but you can see that we do have some things that got kind of truncated, and that's just a feature of this import. If you know this ahead of time, how this is going to work, you can do things like put your carriage returns and things in here. This is really just a demonstration of how this would work. It still saves you some time. Looks like most of it is in here okay. We get up to the 7 range. Everything looks pretty well okay. Again, you can see where it cuts things off. That's kind of a funny cutoff. So you can again hover over these descriptions and you'll see what they read as rather than having to click on them like I am here. We're getting a lot of very humorous edits here. Everything looks pretty good here. Got a few things we needed to fix, but that still saved us a little bit of time. So now our symbols are in the shape that we want them. We'll go ahead and go into the system routine and start putting some code in here. What we're going to do is create our auto and manual mode and auto cycle. Since we've already made all of our tags, we can use them using these shortcuts. So you can see here we have our auto push button, which will latch auto mode. I just start typing it and I get my results. So that was a little bit of a time saver. We're latching auto mode, unlatching manual mode. And to save time, I can just copy this rung, paste it, and change this to our manual push button, which my guess is the next address. So by putting these in order, it kind of tells you where things are. And then again, you can drag your addresses from the other places to where you want them. So I've basically inverted the manual and the auto. And one of the things we want to make sure of is that you can't go into manual mode if you are auto cycling. So I'm going to modify this rung and put my auto cycle bit in here. We need to come out of auto cycle before we can make this work. And we can go ahead and test this if we'd like now. Now I don't have a real HMI in this case. I could use my real push buttons, but we're going to reserve those for something else. So here I am testing my edits, assembling my edits. We already have the subroutine call. So if I toggle this bit, you can see that I am in auto mode, even if I let go of the push button. And once again, go into manual mode, and I unlatched auto mode, toggle the push button. And I can even flip myself into auto cycle here if I want to. And then as you can see, if I try to go into manual, I can't until I get myself out of auto cycle. We're going to address auto cycle next. We're going to need a timer here. So again, I could have used the mnemonic for the timer, but I would have had to put the branch in here ahead of time. Kind of show you how that works later. We're going to make a 3-second cycle start, but first I need to give this timer an address. 0 is my first timer. I did not make a symbol ahead of time, so I'm going to name it now. And I really don't need a symbol for it because I'm not going to use it anymore. So I don't really need a shortcut. We're going to make it a 3-second timer. Put a branch in here, drag it around, and after 3 seconds, we will latch ourselves into auto cycle. Now if I were using ControlLogix, I would be able to drag this address down here and select the done bit, but they don't let you do that here, so you need to type it in. Once again, I have the ability to name this done bit something different if I want to, but there's really not a great reason to do that. Now, of course, you don't want to cycle start unless you are in auto mode. So I'm going to simply drag my auto mode down here. And another thing that you might not want to do is if you have a fault, you don't want to allow this to work. So I'm just going to type in fault. Fault will be addressed a little bit later, but now I have a complete rung for cycle start. I'm going to go ahead and we'll test it and assemble it now, even though I have a couple more lines of code to do. Now, cycle stop can be a little bit tricky here. Cycle start is fairly straightforward. We want to be in auto mode, push our button, and AutoCycle will start. We'll simply toggle the bit to get out of it right now. But cycle stop, you do not want to be able to stop the cycle if you are in, for instance, the middle of an important operation. You want to make a request to stop the cycle, but possibly not complete it until some other mechanism has completed its motions. So we're going to do that here. When I push the cycle stop push button, I'm going to latch in a cycle stop request. And I made some of these bits ahead of time when we were making the symbols. So for instance, I want to make sure that I have a permissive. Actually, we won't put this here. That's going to be later. We're going to make sure that we are in AutoCycle when we make our stop request so that it doesn't hang around from a previous cycle stop. And once again, when I have a cycle stop request, and my cycle stop permissive is made, then we will unlatch AutoCycle, which once again I can drag the address here. So you can see here this is a delayed cycle stop, and then there is the possibility that if I have something like a system fault that I would want to stop immediately. This isn't the only way to do this, but this is a method that I often use. Let's go ahead and test it out. Not pushing real buttons. 1, 2, 3. We are in AutoCycle. Let go of our button. We're going to make a cycle stop request, but you can imagine here, maybe my machine is still moving and suddenly it has a permissive and is able to stop. So you notice here I have a stop request that's still latched. I'm going to need to unlatch that also. So we'll make a quick edit here. Make a change. You always need to go back into edit mode. And I could go up here and select this output unlatch, or I could type in a mnemonic. OTU is the mnemonic. And I can again drag my address. And so now I know all my code works in my system routine. There are other things that we can do in here, but we'll save those for a later time. And that is the end of this video. Thank you.